Well, here we are. We are live from Texas. I am at least half of the team here from Choctaw Stadium. We have Andrew Murray back holding down the fort in San Diego. I have a lot of stuff to talk about, Andy. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? You are a madman for your doing the schedule that you do, man. I am so immensely impressed by all the things that you've done in the last 4 days. I really have to commend you.
Yeah, 12 hours ago right now, I was filming what the Jewish where they hold up the couple in the air and they all dance with the chair, the Hadna Navila. I was filming that, hopped on the plane, got here, excuse me, interviewed Dwayne the Rock Johnson, Dany Garcia, even got my first question to Dany. I have my first official XFL media stuff. The world is good right now.
I imagine. So how was I mean, how so this wedding was it different from any other wedding, or was it pretty much just standard fare?
Well, I don't think that's what people want to hear about right now. We have a
Yeah.
lot of exciting stuff.
Sure.
So here's the deal. So we are live here today. Andrew and I had this scheduled already. We were going to go live, talk about the XFL Town Hall, all the city announcements, the coaches, the venues, all that stuff. Then, shocker of all shockers, they announced a bonus follow-up press conference today, Monday at Choctaw Stadium. So I said, I'm going to hop on the plane, get here, figure out what all that's about. So today, Dany Garcia with Russ Brandon, the mayor of Arlington, the president of Rev Sports Entertainment, and The Rock announced, as we've long suspected, that Arlington, aka Dallas, but Arlington is going to be the official hub, a 3-year lease here with the XFL, and then obviously traveling the teams, players out to the cities to play on the weekends. Not super surprising, but it is nice to get the announcement. Andy, what do you think about the news finally coming out?
I mean, it's something that it's so strange how there's a lot of things that we knew going into it, at least as far as our writing collective knew, as far as Mitchell knew, who was so dead on about so many things. It's incredible how many things he got right, and it all got confirmed this weekend. The cities, some of the venues, the coaches, where they were assigned, a lot of details like that. And I guess for me, it's just the timeline has been so funny considering everything that's happened. I attribute it like this. To me, it felt like that in 2020 the Cadillac got bought, right? And then they didn't drive it. And then 2021 they thought, let's trade it in for a Canadian hybrid vehicle and see if this will actually drive across the country. And then in this year, they at the beginning of the year they go, what if we paint it black and white? And then finally, here we are. They finally are starting to drive the car. Like the car has been turned on, the ignition key's been turned, and they're finally driving the car. For me, it's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming for all of us. So I guess I can't help but think the word I think of is finally.
Tremendously excited. I lowered down my broadcast quality here. Hopefully it'll improve. I've been riding like 100 megabit connection here at the Choctaw Stadium Wi-Fi all day. Of course, we get on to do this live stream and all goes to hell. Very exciting. If you're coming aboard, thank you for checking out the show. Please like and subscribe. Longtime listeners here have known all of this stuff for a long time. The cities, the coaches, like you said, per Mike Mitchell, we've known about the Arlington hub. Really excited to have it all come out. We had the big town hall last night. Lots to talk through there. And then obviously the hub stuff today. I don't know what is the bigger news at this point, the 8 cities and coaches or the hub. What do you think?
I think it's not so much the hub itself. I think the changing of the name from Dallas to Arlington kind of caught some people off guard. And I think just because they had to shift the name around, I'm not exactly sure. Did you hear any confirmation about why they changed it from Dallas to Arlington? Were you able to collect that at all?
So Mike Mitchell is still working on that. The general consensus is perhaps Arlington might have paid some money. We're hosting the hub here. We want to have have our name on the city. Obviously, the president of Arlington was here today, Jim Ross, talking through all that. Russ Brandon really talked a lot about wanting to make Arlington, home here with the XFL. How is my connection doing, Andy?
I mean, you're a little potatoy, but you're doing okay. Your sound quality is good. It's more of just your overall complexion not coming through in HD quality.
That's okay. As long as you can hear me, I think that's good.
Yeah, I believe so.
Awesome. So, anyway, Russ really talked about that, wanting to have a home here, wanting to set up shop, being a part of the community, obviously going out to the cities that way as well, playing in the markets. That was my question to Dany Garcia. I asked her, I said, obviously the USFL had the issue where we're in Birmingham, but we were trying to attract fans. I said, are you guys worried about that? She said, well, no, obviously we're going to be playing in the cities. We're going to have staff in the cities. We don't worry about that as much. I think that's part of it. Russ, I also asked Russ about that. He said, really when you're like an NFL team and you're in the cities, you're really only really out and about connecting with fans maybe on Tuesdays. I think people take for granted how much like in the area football players are during the weekdays, right? You're practicing, you're going to training camp and kind of all that stuff. So maybe that's overblown. Maybe just having the games there is enough. What do you think about the XFL trying to revert course from the mistakes USFL made? And I'm going to try to switch over my Wi-Fi here while you answer.
I think it only makes sense. The biggest thing I think that a lot of us took from watching the USFL this past spring is there was just no energy at the stadiums. There was no buzz. There was no fans unless you were at a Birmingham home game for the Stallions. There was no buzz. And I think here, the biggest thing that what we wanted to take away from was that energy is already built into the league. Like people who watched the live stream yesterday, there are people who are into the league, who are already established, people who are fans of teams, people who have experience with the league in 2020, having enthusiasm for the league. I mean, there were like several different instances yesterday where there were like XFL chants. And I think for me, that's the biggest indication that there was already that built-in fan base and energy. You might as well take advantage of it, right? I mean, you might as well go ahead and say, let's just play in the home markets that we already knew worked, and let's go work around with the ones that we think potentially can work. Las Vegas, San Antonio, and Orlando. So that for me is, it would have been so, I don't know, it would just been such an anti-statement to the 2020 league and such a just almost like abandoning of what really worked if they were to go towards a full hub model. Like if they only played in Dallas, for example, that just would be such an antithesis of like what they were trying to establish 2 years ago. And again, it's different ownership, it's different circumstances, a different world we live in some cases. But I think it just makes so much more sense that they're able to do this because there are people who are already buying in and have bought in to this league.
Yeah, I see here, Max. And you guys, if you have questions, comments in the chat, I've pinned to the top if you want to call in. I think my connection's better now, hopefully. I might have to bounce around between different ones. I have my hotspot and my phone. Like I said, Andy can sit here. I think I just drop off and come back on, right? Was that how it went before when I disappeared? If you have questions, comments, Max is talking about the draft. I was talking with some execs today. I do think that is a plan. I think they really liked what they did with the town hall with Texas Live. I think that is a good, it's right across the street here from where everyone's playing. Really convenient. That was even the other spot that I could go live here that their media people had suggested. I'm just here at Choctaw just because it's nice and air conditioned. I didn't want to walk outside, but I think that I would expect to see something similar. I think they want to figure out, how do we use the Rock? How do we utilize that, right? Do we want the Rock reading pick 256? Do we want to just do the first round? How are we going to do that? But I would expect a little bit more, them learning from the USFL. We want to engage that. We want to, take a part of that. Other comments here coming in. One other thing, and then we want to talk about today, just before I forget, when my not exclusive interview with Dany Garcia, but we were in the media scrum. Dany asked about the rule book for the XFL. She said they had finalized, that was her words, finalized the rule book as of Saturday. They had a big meeting here for about 4 hours, finalizing all that. Russ Brandon confirmed that. They said expect some tweaks, and The Rock used the words they wanted to kick the tires a little bit in terms of what they had with the XFL 2020, but obviously they were happy with Dean Blandino and the work there. Thoughts about the rule book being locked in, Andy?
I think it's a relief, honestly. That's one of the biggest things that was such a contentious issue for people besides the cities and what the team names were. I think the other one that was high up there, sometimes even a bigger priority for some people, was the rule book because it was so unique. It was so innovative in how it changed the game. And really, that's one of the biggest reasons that I feel that I was able to engage with the XFL a little bit in 2020 was because the rule sets were so different. There was different things, different ideas, different ways of playing the game. The pacing was different. The way of the 1, 2, 3-point conversions, which we saw a lot more in the XFL than we did in the USFL, for example, in this past season, which kind of took some of those rules, but no one really went for in the same way. Seeing that being able to be locked down again is a relief. I don't know if Sam Schwartzstein had any influence in that of any way, shape, or form. I'm really curious to see if they talked with anybody from the previous iteration and talked to them about, what do you really think about this? What's the data on this? Should we keep this around? I'm curious about that, but I'm relieved. And I think that was kind of like just one of those, I don't want to say it was a pearl clutching moment, but it kind of felt like it, where people were like, I really need this. Like, this is kind of the thing I would like to keep on. And if you're going to change it, just change it slightly. So I'm glad that news came out.
Yeah, Russ Brandon said they very much didn't want them to be a gimmick league. We're going to play 4 downs. We're going to do things the normal way. Obviously, Russ, many years in the NFL. That will be interesting to see where his voice comes in versus Dean Blandino and kind of the previous regime that way.
Yeah, especially with, like you said, just a lot of that experience in the NFL league with a league that's been established and been around. And that's kind of the biggest thing for all this experience that everyone in this new administration has now, right? I mean, Dany and The Rock talked with people from the CFL league that's been over 100 years old, that's been around. They've talked with established brands, and now they start to think about, okay, what is the long-term plan here? I think, didn't Dany say something about like wanting to be a 100-year league, or at least being a league that stays around for the long term? There's nothing about like, well, there's this new brand of football, let's enjoy it right now. No, I think they're dead serious about keeping this long term and this being a legacy project. So it makes sense that they would have that balancing everything out, those older voices.
We have a question about the Las Vegas Stadium. Andy, will you tackle where you think they might play in Vegas? And I'm going to switch connections again here because I'm dying.
Okay, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. So, yeah, first of all, if you go to the ticketing website, you can't actually see that it is announced. It's to be announced. The stadium's not announced yet. And I think that's something that needs to be figured out soon if people are really going to put down the deposits and start to invest in any seating or any arrangement to go to Vegas, because everyone else has their stadium. Everyone else has their whole thing that they are established with. But as far as Vegas goes, so my thoughts on it are this. I know it could be more expensive to potentially lease out towards Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders play. And I know that there's some sort of agreement with Sam Boyd Stadium. I was talking with Brandon Anderson, one of our other writers. He's actually I will admit, he's a lot more knowledgeable on this because he is covering the team and he is much more in tune with what's going on with UNLV and how they have some sort of agreement to not play in Sam Boyd Stadium, UNLV, to play there and playing in Allegiant instead. But the way I see it is, at what point does ticket cost trump accessibility? Because Allegiant Stadium is on the Vegas Strip. It's more accessible. People are familiar with the venue as far as going to it as an entertainment product. Obviously, home games are there. They have other things that go on there. They're going to have like the NCAA championships there. They're going to have all kinds of events in that stadium. So I feel like, as far as like being able to market it and being able to say, hey, this is a really easy thing for people to get to, that makes a lot of sense. It's just a matter of the cost measurings, and also the optics, right? Like, it's a big stadium. How many people are you going to put in there? How many people are you going to be able to get in there? Sam Boyd Stadium's a little bit more accommodable, but can you get as many people to go out there as you would to Allegiant? So in my opinion, I feel like I would be okay with Allegiant being the choice. I whether they choose to like tarp up the top, or if they try to make some alterations and try to make it not seem as much of an eyesore on TV. But who knows? Maybe people take to it like St. Louis did. Maybe all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually, we're selling a bunch of tickets to this arena. Everyone wants to come in here and have a good time. So for me, I think Allegiant is more of the play. I would be more in favor of it, just in terms of like the accessibility mark of it for everyone, especially with the whole Dallas thing. Dallas being the hub, Dallas being an airport, being easy to get to and come in and out of. I feel the same way about that stadium in Las Vegas, being able to get to it easily.
Yeah, I have a couple callers coming in. I gotta switch Wi-Fi again. This is Comey. We have minor league Rando, and then we have Max. Max, I don't want to make this whole debate today about the Vegas Stadium just because we have a lot more exciting things. I'll bring Max in a minute. I know he's going to step, but minor league, let's bring you in because you came in first. Why don't you say hi, and then I'm going to try to switch over again here.
All right, there you go. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold, but can you guys hear me without an issue?
Can.
All right, good. All right, I know I've had my moments with the XFL. I've had my criticisms, so I'll start with the positives from everything. One, Orlando, DC, St. Louis, Seattle also big positives. I like those, and I'm big happy with them. Otherwise, criticism time. 3 teams in Texas. I've made the jokes. I've said this so many times. There's no real logistical reason why there should be 3 teams in the same state, and why. And I don't get the need for the pissing contest with the USFL when it comes to Houston. They should have moved Houston to somewhere. You could have done Memphis. You could have done Atlanta or Athens. You could have done so many other things. You could have gone to North Carolina. You could have touched the Atlantic coast over there with besides just DC. And it's just like, I feel like 3 teams in the same state is going to be a real Achilles heel for this league because it's a startup. And if you force, you're basically forcing Texas on everybody. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying, okay, this can't be done in the future. But I'm saying for a startup league, I don't see this helping anybody. In fact, I see it's just a huge, huge negative. And I feel like they should have changed their mind as soon as the league cities came out and everyone said, no, don't do this. Besides the people who were like, oh, XFL, woo, XFL always right. Otherwise, I'm really interested to see what happens with Allegiant. I think that's going to be the stadium. And I think that's going to be a little bit weird on TV because it's such a big stadium. Otherwise, Audi Field, good choice with DC. Otherwise, I'm just trying to think everything, make sure I have all the teams in my mind. I said every team, right?
Camping World, right? Orlando, Camping World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good stadium. I think they did pretty well with the Apollos. They'll do fine if with the XFL. I just keep coming back to the 3 teams in the same state. I know everyone tells me, oh, Texas is huge. Texas is huge. It's just you could have used one of those spots and reached another market instead of just forcing everybody to see Texas. It's just that's the killer. That's the killer if you ask me. I want this to work, but I can't see it. That's just my one big issue.
Let me respond, and Andy, start waving if my connection's too bad. I'll switch again. As long as you can hear me, I think that's fine. I think the Texas thing, all 3 cities are so close together in proximity. They have everything based out of Arlington. You can fly everywhere. I don't think ideally you want 3 cities in the same state, but I think if we need 8, it's a lot more expensive to have San Antonio in Ohio or whatever, have it in San Diego. I think like we got to have 8. So let's put 3. Let's figure out the cheapest way to have those. I think they probably were going to do an extended hub format similar to the USFL. I think they learned the lessons from that. Andy, what do you think about the 3 states, the 3 cities in Texas? I mean, it's like the Texas Triangle.
I'm going to hop on and say that I agree with you at first, minor league Rando. I did feel a bit apprehensive about there being 3 Texas teams because that's a lot. There's a lot of teams in one state for a league that's not that big for 8 teams. My counter argument to it is that Texas is the king of football. Texas has just a ubiquitous amount of resources devoted to football in general at all levels of football. I think in this instance, Dallas being a hub makes sense as far as travel accommodations, as far as being able to get people to get in there and get out. That makes complete sense. The Houston angle, I mean, look, they're going to be battling with the Gamblers. We have no idea when the Gamblers are actually even going to play in Houston. That's to be determined. There is no timeline for that as far as the USFL. There is an idea of a timeline somewhere between 2 to 5 years, I suppose, but there's nothing set in stone yet. So until that happens, I think that the XFL is just going to continue carry on their business and having that Houston team and honoring the Roughneck franchise that clearly had some impact. I mean, Cam Phillips caught a huge touchdown for Toronto Argos last night against the Saskatchewan Roughriders as the announcements were going on. So, I mean, there's already kind of legacy playing through in other plays that came from that team. So I think holding on to the Houston franchise makes sense. And San Antonio, again, was so successful in the AAF, it makes sense to add it on. But I do hear you. I think it is a lot of teams, but if there's one state I'm okay with it being in, it's that one.
I don't think there's any I don't think there's any PE match, measuring contest between the XFL and the USFL over Houston. I mean, take away the 80s USFL aside, the Roughnecks were a much bigger draw here in the last 4 years than the Houston Gamblers were with the USFL. I don't think that's on their radar at all. I think they said we were there before. We liked it. We have a lot of accommodations there with TD Stadium, and I think we're going to go back there. I don't think there has anything to do with the USFL.
I mean, I understand. Again, they have the history there, but I just feel like as soon as the USFL said Houston's ours, you can say, oh well, they have the history. I get that, but I feel like that should have been hands off. It should have been all right. USFL got it. We're going to go into our own market. I mean, I'm thinking about this. And if you want to have a team close to Texas and you want to keep that kind of football, triangle, you could have done Little Rock, which again, War Memorial Stadium, MLFB. Yeah, I know that's a thing. Or you could have done OKC. Remember Oklahoma, the Wranglers? I mean, it's just like, I feel like, I feel like, again, it's going to be too much. Oh, okay, I see that in the studio. I mean, it was technically because, I mean, XFL 2020 technically ceased to exist. And it might be stupid, but it's still – I don't get the point. I feel like we're going to see a weird split, and it's going to hurt both leagues when it comes to Houston. I really do. I think it's not going to help.
All right, I'm going to bring Max in here. Max, I don't want to get on the big Vegas thing, right? So you can say whatever, but I don't. We have like 1,800 other things to talk about today than Allegiant Stadium versus Sandboyd. So we're going to bring Max in. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm not going to I'm just going to lay the facts. The Sandboyd Stadium is legally closed. The Raiders and UNLV signed a contract back in 2021 for 10 years to pay UNLV up to $3.5 million every year to make sure that UNLV did not host any events at all without the Raiders' consent, and those were like graduations. Other than that, no events are allowed to be hosted at Sandboyd Stadium, so therefore the only option in Las Vegas is either like a high school stadium or Allegiant Stadium, which they're not going to play at a high school stadium. So that's just the fact.
Allegiant is just massive. I'm just really scared of that. I have MetLife vibes all over again.
Okay. So
go ahead, guys. Sorry, but I was just going to say.
The capacity is much smaller than MetLife. It's not 80,000. It's 65. So I just want to put that out there.
It concerns me. So obviously we had the cities and everything came out yesterday. It concerns me. We have stadiums for everything. Still TBD in Vegas. Was that holding up the announcement, right? Was that something that was delaying it? It seems weird that we've waited this long and we still only have 7 of 8. What do you think, Andy? And then we'll get minor league.
I mean, look, that scares me too. Honestly, 65,000 is nothing to sniff at either. But again, it depends on, do they have confidence in people buying into the league and buying into the product and buying into Rod Woodson's message and all of that. That's my only question. And I mean, Vegas is becoming more ubiquitous as far as like having more sports teams, but do they believe that people are really going to latch on to it and at least put a decent number of people, like say in the lower bowl, for example? Are they going to be able to fill that out like they did in St. Louis? If they really believe that, then fine, go for it. But I just want to see it first.
Yeah, I guess I'll stick on to that because you're going to have to tarp off some sections. I think we have to be brutally honest about that because there's no way you're getting 65,000 people into Allegiant Stadium for a spring football game, USFL, XFL, MLFB. I think we all can agree on that. The issue is, though, how much are you going to tarp off? Because could it be a St. Louis scenario where you happen to sell out the dome? Sure, that could happen. We've seen this happen where these teams explode. But in other cases, what I'm worried about is, I mean, we kind of saw it with Birmingham, even as someone who's I'm happy with the USFL. They probably should have tarped off the top section, probably tarped off some more of the side sections, especially when it came to protective. Why did I forget about that? They probably should have focused in more people in one area, but it's just I think that's going to look weird on TV because I have to assume probably one of the Texas teams is going to be one of the opener. I'm going to probably say Arlington if that's where the HQ is going to be, and then Vegas is probably going to be an opening day city also. I mean, how's that going to look? Yeah, it's brand new, but let's say we've reached week 7. How's that going to look if the team's bad, especially? So that's going to be the real scary parts midseason.
Mike's got a good comment here, and then I have a question. I want to follow up another topic here. Good, lively chat. I really appreciate you guys. If you have questions, kind of going all over the place, but I really appreciate everyone doing that. He says the opening game has to be in St. Louis. St. Louis and then Arlington. From what Russ Brandon, president today, spoke about, what the mayor of Arlington spoke about, like they are all in on Arlington. Expect Dany Garcia called Choctaw Stadium the media capital that they're going to pump all this content out of. I mean, I expect to see lots of social media stuff from here, lots of behind the scenes stuff, but I expect them to be very, very, very Arlington heavy. But if you have the 2 kickoff games, St. Louis and Arlington, Max, what do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, you still have the other 2 games of kickoff weekend. So yeah, St. Louis and Arlington's good. I'd probably put the other 2 in San Antonio and then take your pick of DC or Seattle, depending on preference. That's all good to me. I will say briefly in regards to Allegiant, just briefly.
And then
it's going to look. I know. I just want to say it's not going to be any more worse than Tampa. That's all.
Okay. Andy, what do you think about the kickoff opening weekend? I mean, I say kickoff, that's like the first game or that first, the first day. But what do you think about that? And then we have a question here about expansion, which I actually have some insights about.
I mean, it's going to be, I assume it's going to be on a Saturday like it was last time, on that first Saturday afternoon. So I would have to believe like everyone else. I know it's a broken record at this point, but it's got to be St. Louis, right? Like that was the most standout franchise and the most popular franchise as far as getting numbers into the stadium. I think just starting from that point, I think DC was not a bad one last time. Them playing the Dragons, I think that was a decent opening game as well. But yeah, that St. Louis venue has to be like the designation for the first one. I would think they might be tempted to try Dallas and say like, hey, here's our hub. This is what's going on. But I don't think that would be the best idea to start with Globe Life Park. I believe that it must be St. Louis from the outset.
I think that they are in love with this area. I understand the Choctaw and the Battlehawks, and we love Anthony Becht, and he's the face of the XFL now and all that, but they love Arlington. I'm just telling you guys, I just, expect them to be, they will be the Stallions of the XFL. They are hardcore on that. I had a question here going back, Alan is talking about expansion. We had another question about, expanding out. I actually it wasn't quite an exclusive interview. It was me and one other reporter. We were chatting with President Russ Brandon for about 5-6 minutes. And the question came up about that. Obviously Houston, a very Hispanic demographic, right? Interest in, expanding down to Mexico. Obviously we've seen the trademarks in the past, all that. Russ said, first 2-3 years, we are getting this put together. We're not talking expansion. We're not worried about that. Like everyone that's talking, okay, teams 10 and 12, like we need to get off that. We need to crawl before we can walk. He did say with international in terms of Mexico, nothing's off the table. I know Mike Mitchell had talked about that before, them wanting the Mexico team, but like, I love the expansion talk, and that's great. But like let's play a season first. The same with the USFL. Like let's get more than one city, into their local market, and then we can talk about expansion. Minor league thoughts about, I guess expansion, even though I don't want to talk about it, but thoughts on that and what I just said.
I'll be brief because again, we're too far away from really saying, you should post the team here, you should post the team here. So. I like to hold off on that. I mean, I have a few spots. It's been a half joke, half serious truth. I've always said Huntsville, Alabama should probably be at least looked at seriously for a team, even though they'll be even small for the spring league. They're a city on the move, but I mean, we got to wait till 2025, 2026 at the earliest before we really start making that call, because we just have to make sure that we have a foundation first. And that's something I like the USFL is doing, is they've said 2024 is when we'll start talking, and they seem to be taking that seriously. So holding off, I think we should wait a lot.
Brian has a comment here. St. Louis had the largest waiting room queue for season ticket deposits last night. I was literally filming a wedding and walking to the boat to go like sail off to do like some sunsetty photos on the boat. And I'm like on there. Like, I had no problem at all getting my season tickets. I mean, I assume we'll get media, right? I mean, I assume I'll be in the locker room. I'm just kidding. But, I still wanted to get them. I have friends and stuff that want to go. Andy, did you, any thoughts about season ticket stuff? And I get Max's thoughts on this well, but, did you hear anyone having any trouble? I mean, the $50 down, that feels very similar to what XFL 2020 did. Of like, let's just get your information. Let's get you in here and follow up.
No, I didn't see any. I mean, as far as any technical issues go, no, I didn't see that. I think everyone, a lot of people in our group hopped on quickly and got things squared away. Again, I think like you and many of us, I think it's just going to be media availability. So essentially, those tickets might end up getting given away to friends anyways. But I do think that is, I think it was very seamless, and I think they stuck to their timeline too. They said at the Central Time, what was it, 8 p.m. Central Time last night, they're like, we're going to drop this. So they were at least very on point with that. They were true to their word.
I had if all is fair and we're getting the same tickets we had in 2020, and this was not because of my media connections back then, it was because of my Twitter friendship with then team president Ryan Gustafson. We were seats 1, 2, 3, 4 on the 50-yard line, row 1. So I just, if all is said and done again, I think that we deserve those tickets back of XFL. Max, any thoughts about how they did the ticket unveiling? Okay, here's the cities, go now, and we'll figure out dates and all that stuff later, because obviously they don't have the schedule set.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting a schedule out at this point. I know 2020 did, but everything is running a bit slower this time around. That's fine. It was very efficient. Even in the St. Louis queue, whenever it said it, like I just went to peek in it and saw there was like 50 people in the queue. It went by in like 20 seconds and I was in. So.
Yeah, I didn't see. I mean, I went multiple times in because I saw like, oh, you could get the group seats, we could get the suite. I was like, I don't really want to spend $500 minimum on the suites on this right now. But yeah, I never had any problem with getting on that. Anyone else? I have another question here about that. Oh, this is a good one. So, I had kind of pontificated today that we might be getting the Texas reveal, right? Okay, we announced all the cities and venues last night. We we announced the Renegades or whatever today. When do you guys think, we'll start with Andy, we'll go around, that we realistically, like, when are we getting team names and logos and colors and all that kind of stuff?
Well, like I said, they finally turned the ignition, so I would imagine pretty soon. Now, my only thought is, do they do it all in one bunch, or do they do it kind of like city by city? Like, do they do a press conference at every single city and say, hey, here's our team logo, our names, our colors, yada, yada, yada. I have a sneaking suspicion they might do it that way, as far as just one by one announcements as opposed to all together at the same time. So, but I would imagine if that's going to happen, then it would be over the course of, like, say, the next month, for example. So at maybe starting the beginning of August, I would think that would be the case, because I don't know if they would really just sort of throw it all out there. They seem to be, look, it clearly seems to me, based on the last night's event, they are all about having an event, having pageantry, having a way to get the message out and for the general audience to be involved as well. So I think that is something to keep in mind as far as their presentation. So I would imagine if they're going to do it one by one, it would be over the course of, say, August.
Let me hop in and then we'll go to minor league. When I was getting set up here, I wasn't one of the I was peeking around to see if they're still around here. One of the XFL people was saying, like, okay, we'll see you next month. We're not going to have anything right now, but we'll see you. We're going to have some stuff coming. So, I mean, obviously it's July 25th. So I would presume anything is next month. I see them all in one smattering now. I really liked, like, today, I'm like, oh man, if they do the Renegades and then we do one in Seattle and we do one in Vegas, like, because today was this, I think the next event will just be all of them, and I think they'll bust it out. What do you think, minor league?
It's 100%. The XFL likes its big one-off event. That's been the kind of mantra so far for them. So I think it's probably going to be back in Arlington, probably the same venue as last night. And I think it's actually probably gonna be Labor Day weekend. I keep looking at the calendar. I'm like, that's a really good choice because you could probably bring in fans, you can have people travel, and you could have them come in, come out. It's a quick event. Boom, you can, if you can bring in people who put down deposits, they can probably get an exclusive little ticket, blah blah blah. It's all the fun and everything like that. So I think maybe the Sunday before Labor Day weekend, which would be let me pull this up, the 4th, because it's the first Monday of every September. So maybe the 4th, that kind of lines up with the next month. So I think we'll probably get uniforms and team names on the 4th of September, around there at least.
You know what also happens on traveling weekends? People get married. If the XFL could quit scheduling events, although I don't think I have one the 4th. I know we have a couple on the 3rd, but I don't think we could have one. So maybe I can fly on the 4th. We need to quit scheduling them. I want to respond to Jenna's comment here in a minute, but Max, I want to get your thoughts. And if anyone else, and we can accommodate more than 4. If you're sitting there and you want to hop in, the link is pinned to the chat. If we have any other writers or anybody that want to hop in, Max, thoughts on that, and then I want to respond to Jenna's comment.
So I guess sometime in August would be team names and logos and colors and etc. When we saw that press release, we saw they had the colors on the arrows and all the 5 remaining cities match, and Orlando's matches Tampa from 2020. So that's perhaps a sign. We'll see.
Yeah, I like that Heinz Ward looks like the Steelers, and it's like, okay, like, that vibes. Jenna has this, and I had a tweet ready on the plane this morning. I think it was about 3 Pacific, like 5 Texas time when I was landing, and I had the tweet, but it wasn't obviously the right time to send it. I go, The Rock had like his big comment during the town hall, like, we're working on all this really cool, like we're redesigning and we're going to, all this cool new uniforms and everything. And it's going to be awesome when we have all these 2 team names. Like, name one piece of like new merchandise the XFL has released that like anybody likes at all. Like the city shirts are terrible. Like I have the hat. I mean, the hats and whatever are fine, but like basically like across the board, everyone hates, right, these new cities that they announced last night. The shirts, like, have you seen one person like the like Arlington with the X? And now it's like, oh, I really can't wait to see what this crack team comes up with next out of the merchandising department. Like, it's not that hard. And I don't know who is designing this stuff, but I have always said I am available for merch consulting. I will tell you that those are horrendous shirts, and I owned the Seattle 2020 like football team one. Andy, thoughts on the merchandise and Jenna's comment?
I think they're just trying to make a quick buck before the actual logos come out. I don't think there's really a lot of effort putting into this. I'm just going to be brutally honest. I don't think this is something that is going to be long-standing, that people are going to be like buying over the next year or however many years, because I think they're just trying to cash in on the idea of like, look, here's the team cities. This will be a placeholder until we actually have everything ready. So I don't think it's actually, I wouldn't put, my opinion, I wouldn't put too much thought into it, because I really don't think they put too much thought into those designs.
I had a lot of USFL homers like, aren't you going to defend the shirts, Reid? I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not buying it. Like, I'll think, oh, hey, spoiler alert though. And I don't know how many there are. But I don't get your hopes up, but, I was handed by Russ Giulio, the director of player, scouting for the XFL. He gave me like 3 or 4 of the actual the tryout jerseys from the that the players were wearing. So we might have to have a blood feud battle from the XFL News Hub writers to see who get mailed those, or maybe that could be a podcast giveaway. I haven't decided yet, but I think there's 4 of them, like a couple of blacks and the white. But the ones that the players, that's a pretty cool. Like that doesn't exist, right?
Well, that's great. I would have loved for that to be on the team story. That's awesome.
Minor league, any thoughts on any of this stuff? And like I said, if anyone else wants to call in, happy to keep this going. We got good viewership and good comments. So if you guys have anything else you want us to talk about, because there's a lot on the docket.
Yeah, this will actually be my last thing because I got to go out and I got to go to a work lunch. But I guess final comments. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic that besides the few things that I have talked about that are my big negatives, I'm interested. I think there's going to be a few more big events. I think the draft's probably going to be in Arlington. They'll probably make that a giant event just like this. And I want to see what that schedule looks like. I wonder if it's just going to be like the USFL schedule where it's 10 regular season games, division, championship, championship itself, I think that would probably be the best way to go through. You have a little overlap, and you don't have to worry about it that much when it comes to the timelines. So cautiously optimistic. That's where I'm at right now.
All right, well, Minor, thanks for hopping on. We have another guest hopping on, so I'll kick Minor off, and we'll bring on a friend of the show. And Andy, if anyone needs to go to work or whatever, let me know. Let's bring on Jared. Jared, how are you doing?
Hey, doing okay. Those Guardians are not coming back, but
Sorry,
whatever.
Jared.
I love the logo from the Guardians, but this is from a month ago or two when they revealed the website. I hate the website being black and white. It's like they're taking it back to the 1950s or whatever. This is me, though. I like the old XFL 2020 logo. I think they should have just kept that, personally. I thought it was just fine as is. Yeah, the merchandise, I mean, the gym bag's horrible looking, I personally think. I'm not dishing out that money unless it's affordable. The city shirts, I know they did that in 2020. Before those looked a little bit better in 2020, I think, if I remember right. I think they were black or something. But yeah, the announcement was really good. I enjoyed it. Something we've all been waiting very patiently, with the CFL talk last year, and it's finally coming to fruition, and I'm excited about it. But yeah, the logo didn't need to be changed, I didn't think. So
I did ask when I had my semi-exclusive interview with President of the XFL, Russ Brandon. I was asking him, I said, what do you say to Guardian fans and Wildcat fans? I think I said in the group chat I was going to ask that, not so much to Tampa Bay fans because there wasn't too many of those, but, what do you say to the Wildcats and the Guardians fans? I can't remember his answer because I kind of blacked out with everything the last 2 hours, but look for that. I'm going to post The Rock and Dany's interview and then Russ Brandon's interview on the YouTube. I'll probably edit it on the plane home tonight. But, Max, now that we're finally out of New York, LA, I've seen a lot of criticism, right? Because obviously people, like, we all knew this, but not everybody knew this. A lot's been made, right? Our friend Seth online, and they're going to lose all this viewership and everything. What do you make about them actually being out of New York and LA now?
Those facilities costs in LA and New York are not cheap, y'all. It's really hard to justify playing in New York and LA whenever you're drawing pretty average to below average crowds with extra high costs, to the point where, if I remember right, Guardians tickets were more expensive than every other team in the league in 2020. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, Jared.
I didn't know about that. I'm not from New York. I just like the logo.
Okay.
I'm actually from the Midwest. So
okay. So yeah, the season tickets, from what I recall, and the basic tickets were like $5 more expensive. But anyway, the media difference for non-New York and LA games were often minimal, and often some of the games that didn't involve New York and LA were the games that were the most watched. So I don't think viewership is going to be all that affected, to be honest with you. And I think the revenue opportunities from being in these other places instead, even Vegas, but particularly San Antonio instead, is going to draw fans. And I'm not worried about like 3 teams in Texas or none of that. So I think it's all going to work out, honestly.
Yeah. Andy, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think just the state tax situation is something that was considered as, I think we've talked about before. I think, Max, you mentioned it as well, as the venue costs are just outrageous for those 2 specific places. And I think that's something that, if we're going to go off of what Russ Brandon was talking about as far as expansion, it's probably the same thing as far as costs. It's going to be like, well, let's see what happens first, and let's wait and see if we can actually, if it's worth putting the time and resources into those specific places and venues. So I think that's something to consider. I don't think New York or California are abandoned completely. LA, I think those places will come back to at some point, but they need to make sure that they're actually making and generating revenue and be able to generate interest first before they go back into there. It is disappointing. I agree. I think the Guardians were great. I liked watching the Wildcats. I'm a San Diego fan. I want a team to come out to San Diego. There's a new stadium that is just about to open for San Diego State and is the perfect size. It's 35,000 seats. It's perfect for this kind of league. But I think they're going to have to just take time and see and make sure that what they're investing in is actually worthwhile and going back into those markets. But it is disappointing. I understand.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of, and I was pretty critical about the USFL cities and what they chose. And, well, these were the ones that that had nostalgia from the like, I don't see a lot of like USFL isn't in California. USFL, I mean, I get their New Jersey, but that's not New York. I mean, that's not, I hate that whole MetLife and how they play and all that stuff. But I don't see a lot of that. They have the USFL is not even in half the country right now. I don't like the 3 Texas teams. Like I said, I think that caught a lot of people off guard. I think it's just a necessary evil right now. Like we have to put the 8th team somewhere. Like let's do it here, and we can house everybody here and kind of get them around that way. Just real quick, Mark had a question. The draft, they said mid-November. They're trying to figure it out. Like I said, talking with a couple of the league executives, kind of off, Mike said they're just trying to figure out, like, how do we want to position? Like, how do we want to use the rock? How do we want to kind of showcase that? I think they're going to utilize some of the Texas Live stuff that they did before. I think they like that venue. Like, I could see them using that for all the announcements for the next 2-3 years. Is like, let's just bring in 500-600 people in there. They had a really good setup that way. Any other thoughts, Max? Do you have thoughts on that? And then we can go to Jared.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for an in-person draft this time, or at least from a viewing experience perspective. I won't get any other perspective, but they're clearly saying they're going to be putting in more broadcast effort to this, which is exciting because last time around we had the YouTube stream and nothing else, and it was kind of forced together conference call. Whereas this time it's like, okay, we're doing proper coverage. ESPN is already seemingly way more all in on this than anybody was in spring football, or even it seemed like Fox from a broadcast perspective is on the USFL. I mean, showing up to showcases was not something I expected, to be honest with you, except for the HBC one with Dion. But other than that, I didn't expect anything.
Well, even today they had Ian, or I don't know all the ESPN people, but they had some ESPN guy today emceeing all the stuff and bringing out the rock. And I have the video I'll probably post later. I think the interviews will probably get a little bit more hype with Dany and the rock and stuff, but I have the full press conference. I don't know if anyone, because I don't believe they streamed that one today. I know that a couple of the local news stations fed it back. Jared, do you have any thoughts on anything we're talking about?
Oh, so yeah, we were talking about the live stream. I remember 2020's live stream being very hardly anything to watch. It was like fantasy football. It was pretty bad. Like I was okay with it, but I'm really open-minded, and hopefully it's a lot more entertaining and goes a lot more better for the overall audience, and they can get a lot more into it. It's with The Rock and Dany, so they should have something much better. Just give us something like what the ESPN NFL draft's like a little bit, and I'll be satisfied.
The vibe I'm getting, and like I was saying with Russ talking both on the podium and off with this Arlington, Dany talking about them generating all this content, I think they're really like learning from the USFL. Like, okay, we really need to like engage. We're going to have the staffs in places. We're going to stream the draft. We're going to do the team stuff. Like remember the Colin Cowherd, like, okay, here's your 4 North Division teams. Like, okay, now let's talk about NBA. And you're like, I think you need to make
cheesy.
it special. I'm impressed so far with what they've done with ESPN. Like I said, I don't know any of those people. I don't watch ESPN, but bringing in those people, the lady that hosted the event last night. What did you guys think? Because I missed a lot of it. Obviously, I had this stuff on because I was working. Andy, what did you make of like the town hall in general and how they presented that?
Aside from the audio issues, because I had to jack up the volume on my TV to like 100 to be able to hear it. Besides that, I think the presentation itself was very effective. And I mean that in terms of the engagement from the fans. And that's really the biggest thing that, again, I pointed to earlier is like the fans that are there that are already invested in the product are there. They are there for the league, the teams, the logos, everything. People there looked like they were really engaged. There were chants breaking out, like the XFL chants were breaking out. Our buddy Van being like front row and getting in a question was just wild to me. That to me was like the most kind of like out of body experience I had while watching the stream because we know him personally. But that's the thing. Like, I'm already starting to think like there are memorable moments being set up by this league through like things just as like a team logo and event, and also the banter between the coaches that were introduced and them trash talking each other. Just a lot of camaraderie. The Rock seemed really engaged. Dany was really enthused. Laura Rutledge did a good job of hosting. It had so much energy to it. It had so much vibe to it. That's really the biggest thing I take from it. Mark Perry, our chief and editor, was saying that the traffic on the site was out of control. Like, it was insane during the entire event. So yeah, it's buzz. It was energy. It was a lot of just like community coming together and being engaged in the event. That's what I take away from it. And that's really impressive considering how dormant this league has been for so long, for that to just come right out of the gate like that.
Yeah, we'll get Max's thoughts here. It is, I do think, and we talked about this in Arizona on Friday, that now that kind of like the elephant's out of the room, at least until we get team names, I think they're just going to be a lot more open with that. Funny anecdote, talking about The Rock, we were getting ready for the interview, and I ran over there. I'm front, I got my microphone and everything, and some guy tried to clip a lapel mic on, like, The Rock had like one of those faux polo kind of shirts, like the V-neck with the collar. And like, so he clips it on, and The Rock like looks down at it. He's like, "I don't want this on my shirt. This is a really nice shirt." And the guy's like, "Oh shit!" Like, he took it off, and then like The Rock like looked really mad, and then he kind of like laugh, and I'm like, I think he was really mad. Like, I think he uses that like laugh kind of chuckle as a cover. I think that he was pretty pissed off. A story I heard years ago with Steve Jobs doing the same thing, that like one of my buddies had to put a microphone on Steve Jobs's faux turtleneck, and Steve Jobs got very upset about that. Max, thoughts on the town hall and how everything was presented?
Yeah, it was really well put together. Audio was not great though. Like, it was real quiet. Like, there was obviously loud there, but like the mics were not great. The feed was really low, even on max volume on my phone. So the Laura was great. The coaches were great. Dany was great. Rock was great. Unsurprisingly, Jerry was not there. I mean, we knew he wouldn't be there, but like in general, I mean, he's not the kind of guy to show up to stuff. And it's been interesting to see how much we know he's committed to this, and yet he just isn't a media guy. And yet simultaneously, he rolls up in Milan, shoots a whole bunch of stuff. So it's just very fun to me. It's all good though.
Now that I've got my connection issue, knock on wood, seemingly, do we have better production value with this or the XFL stream last night?
No question this.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I was very concerned there for a minute because I literally had like 100 megabit when I tested. Then Andy and I get on, and it was like going down to potatoes. I'm still streaming very low quality, but I think it's at least kind of caught up. Jared, thoughts on the town hall? And then I have a question here from DJP.
Yeah, I thought the venue was great. I would love to go there myself. It looked fantastic. Texas does it big, I guess. I would love to go to Texas in the future. I thought the presentation was good. I was on another XFL show and I could not hear anything. And I thought that was the program I was with on another like window on my computer, but I guess it was really bad for a lot of people. So I had it on Max as well. So I'm right there with you guys.
And you can plug. I saw you XFL STL show. How dare you ever go on any other XFL show? But they are friends. That's okay. You can plug that. But never
crazy.
again. That'll be your one time. Whatever. DJB said, I caught the last part of the conversation. Consensus if the rules will be the same. So Dany said, as of Saturday, the rules are her words. I'm going to post a video clip. The rule book is locked. They had a very productive, like 4-hour meeting, Russ Brandon said, getting everything hammered out, utilizing a lot of Dean Blandino's feedback, and then obviously Russ coming from the NFL and his background. He said he does not want it to be a gimmick football at all. They obviously liked what they wanted. And The Rock said, quote unquote, they wanted to kick the tires of the rules that they had. Max, I don't think we got I think this was before you hopped on the stream. Thoughts about the rule book and any of that conversation now that we know that at least they have an idea now 6 months out, but I guess that's fine of what they're working with.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just briefly reiterate what I said before, was that I was already pretty sure based on who they brought on the executive team that the basis of the rules from last time was going to stick around with maybe some slight tweaks or some stuff that didn't work getting thrown out. And everything we heard today at the press conference seems to line up with that. So I'm definitely excited. So
I'm sad. I am sad for our, friend Sam Schwartzstein. I don't like bringing in, retaining the ideas and not the man. I think that would have been good. I know that I saw, all of our mutual friend Bailey that did the XFL social media account back in 2020 was finally, his personal account was finally unfollowed by the XFL. I think he said something of like, you're welcome for all the followers. I got your league. And now, obviously, they don't need to follow him, but, they're moving into a new phase here. But it is weird that, like, kind of like the USFL, we're taking the things that we want from before. It's our money. We're putting our stamp on it, and we're kind of doing what we want with it. It's more similar than not, I think, the philosophies behind both the XFL and the USFL. Andy, thoughts on kind of that dichotomy of how Rock and Dany, they're like, well, we want to kind of benefit all the things that we got from this with our money and purchase, but then we really want to be able to do whatever we want with it.
I mean, they own it. So that's there's that. But yeah, I think, look, there are going to be alterations because it's not their baby. It was Vince's baby. It was Vince McMahon's idea, and he brought it forth. So when you adopt a child into a house, you start to do different rules, right? You have different ideas of how to raise the child, how to nurture it, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I think there's going to be a much more consensus idea of like, how are we going to establish a brand and a long-term identity? How long do they want the league to last? Like I said, there's much more ideas toward that. Whereas with the XFL 2020, it was more, I think the idea was more that there was 3 years worth of finances. And then it was, well, let's see what happens after that. So it was kind of just more putting into the now and then, as far as innovation, as far as ideas, as far as like trying to stick out, which was starting to work before everything shut down. So I think with this, it's just much more like trying to reform and remold it into trying to be something that can last for a long time, which may not always mean that there is going to be potentially as much like experimentation and as much innovation, because we're talking about business people. We're talking about people who have actually like been around and done things in other ventures for a long time. I mean, Dany and The Rock both bring that experience from different backgrounds, and as does, Russ Brandon working in the NFL, people who worked in established brands and know what works, as opposed to just kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. So I think it's coming more from that perspective.
Max, you're a big, to say it lightly, a big fan of XFL 2020. I mean, what are you making now of these changes? And we're it's not the baby that you loved back 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Well, I'll say I'm not happy about what happened to Sam, or about like them just kicking everyone to the side that was like on the ground, the foot soldiers. But if they don't align with the vision, then the company just got to do what they got to do, I guess. I'm really excited for like what the new ownership group like has perspective on, because like these groups seem to know a lot better about like how to be ambitious without just like spending money on something that doesn't need to be spent on. I remember Vince in 2020 was like, football must be played in New York at MetLife because that's where the football is played. That was a thing. So I think this group is a lot more responsible while being ambitious, and I like that.
Jared, thoughts on this?
I enjoyed XFL 2020. I hope they would have kept the game ball for this. That would have been great. They put all that time and innovation into it with that X grip or whatever technology. I think, like I said, I think they should have just kept everything that was good with 2020, including the rules, and just moved it over to the, for this, and just get going and, save your, like fans might want to leave if they wait too long. And I think they should have just had a little bit more sense of urgency, but without this talks of like the CFL. But what they're doing now is fine. They want to have their own stamp and signature on everything that's different, and Vince McMahon's out of the way. We don't have to think about him anymore, and hopefully it's much better than. Hopefully it's up to the level of 2020. I'm done.
Ken, no, they didn't. XFL didn't block Bailey. They just unfollowed him. I don't think they blocked Bailey. I think they just said we're tired of following that account. I will say, for my, I was not involved in any of this media stuff back XFL 2020. Had I not have really gone down this. Now I'm sitting in this. I have to show you guys before we get off the stream. I'm literally like, it's not a soul here in the stadium now. They just told me to go out the security gate when I leave. I'll have to show you. But like, if you had told me 3 years ago, I'd be sitting here broadcasting from like the Rocks press conference of like the Arlington hub. So I'm like in a different viewership now, right? Where we're kind of into all this. I don't know if I would like this or not. I like the little condensed 8 team. We're doing it in February and March, and it's Reid's time off and Saturday, Sunday. I mean, I remember like, we went to the DC Seattle game, and then I was flying back, and the other game was on the TV at the airport. And like, I don't think I had ever watched, except for like the Super Bowl, a game, a football team that was not like my home team, because I just wasn't a real football guy. I became a football fan through the XFL, and I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. Like I could sit here, watch a beer, kind of see what they're doing, and I watch the next one and the next one. And, I kind of fell in love with that. I don't know if I still would love kind of all the changes they've made. And, we'll see what the rule book is and kind of how that stands apart. But I just don't want it to be the USFL where it's not maybe taking it far enough in ways that they could do it in trying different things. I like to utilize these smaller leagues to try to do some different stuff. Andy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point you bring up. And I think that's why even maybe they bring in the coaches that they do, the coaches that maybe want to actually try and experiment and actually do things with the rules that they have. Look, I admire and I appreciate the coaches staffs that were in the USFL. I think there was definitely a lot of, how do I put it nicely? Not a lot of like old head ideas, but like people who had their ways of like running their teams, running their offenses, their defenses, and everything. So even though the USFL may have brought in some ideas as far as the rules from like other leagues, I didn't see them utilizing it that way. Like I didn't see people willingly going for 3, going for 2 all that often, or going for the 4th and 12 on instead of the onside kick, like people trying to get more points. It seemed like they were much more and said, well, this is how it worked for us in those other leagues. We're going to do it this way because this is what we're comfortable with. I don't get that vibe so much from this coaching staff. I feel like there's a lot more willingness to experiment, especially just the amount of like enthusiasm and energy you did. By the way, a great job of all those interviews you got from the Arizona showcase. I really got a really good sense from guys like Rod Woodson, from Anthony Beck, got Bob Stoops, of things that they're willing to try out. And I felt similar energy again to the live show yesterday. So I feel like there's going to be much more emphasis on that from the people that they selected, at least.
I'll get Max's side. So yeah, one anecdote, we were after the press and then we did the interviews, we did some photo ops on the field. They had like the mayor of Arlington and they had whatever. And they had all the coaches come out. They did stuff with Bob Stoops, right? Because obviously he's, here with the head coach. But then they did all the coaches, Wade Phillips was here and Jim Haslett wasn't because he has a commitment right now, but like everyone else. And there was just a real like cool vibe around them. Like they all kind of were getting in and joshing Dwayne a little bit and kind of, they were moving people to try to figure out the right angle with the goalpost. And I think I have the clip. I'll have to go back and look, but it just was a lot of like kind of that locker room boys kind of hanging out. Like I think, and even though The Rock obviously wasn't really in the locker room, like this number 54 we hear all the time, but I think he, gets obviously the respect that he has earned and kind of carries that weight with him. And I think that it just feels like a very cohesive group of coaches and that they all like genuinely would all go get a beer after work and kind of hang out. It was a cool insight to see them doing that just kind of between as a wedding videographer. I always think that's interesting too. The interactions people have between the photos being taken, it's kind of really how they are. Max, thoughts on any of this?
The coaches, I was a fan of like most of the coaches that got hired, if not all of them, honestly, even though some of them you were like, I have no idea what to make of this right now. I definitely think the return of June Jones as an offensive coordinator is arguably the most important thing, just because he's going to be willing to go for 3. So having even one guy who is going to be willing to go for 3 and they bring back something like that, you're going to see more aggression because the other coaches are going to feel forced to be like putting that same level of production out there. So it'll be good.
Jared, thoughts, and I know you watch USFL too, thoughts on, USFL and now it just feels like a different crop of coaches here.
to me, it's a higher level of coaches, or at least Wade Phillips. I never expected him to show up because, he was with the Denver Broncos, my favorite NFL team, in 2015, and got them to the Super Bowl, and they won it as defensive coordinator. So I was really surprised. Rod Woodson, legendary Raider? That was amazing. I've heard of Terrell Buckley before. So, yeah, I think it's on another level than the USFL, which is a good thing.
It's been so, the Arizona thing, I kind of hit me high on it, especially after they had the town hall. Like, okay, are we going to go to this? Is it worth it? It's kind of this, it's like a lame duck showcase, right? Before the town hall, and nothing's going to come out. I thought getting to just interact, it was the really small group where it was, Brandon and Matt and Evan and I, they were like, today was crazy. There's media all over the place. And, there's just obviously pressure when Dwayne's there and when Dany's there. And, but Russ was able to talk to us at the showcase kind of off camera too. And just getting to know these people in a different way than the USFL has ever allowed the people covering the league, unless you're, like RJ Young or whatever. And, I saw a lot of chatter on Twitter, like all these XFL people, they're going out to the showcases and they're not. I went to the USFL Open. I asked for press credentials. They said they weren't giving them to anyone unless you worked for Fox. So I was there, I paid my own dime. Andy and I did the show outside, but I asked for that. They didn't do it. I asked for this. They did it. And that's the difference. I mean, they're leaving Choctaw Stadium open right now, at least wherever I'm in, this Capital One Bank Club. They asked to do this. Jeffrey, the guy came, their media guy came over. He said, "You all set? Do you need anything?" It's just a difference of, and it's not a lot. They've got a ton of stuff going on today. I mean, everybody in the world is here, and their media people still had the time to come over and take 2 seconds. So, I just want to make that point that, I was with the championship game and was not given anything. So, Andy, any thoughts on that? You were in Birmingham.
Yeah, no, I distinctly remember something similar where it was just any idea of getting any information from anybody from any media for any media availability was non-existent. I mean, we were trying to find attendance numbers, and now it's like finding buried treasure. So I think this is something that I think everyone pointed to as far as being accessible and being open and being able to engage with the league and be able to engage with the coaches and with the owners and all that. It was, 2 years ago. They want the same sort of level of exposure because that's something that is just not afforded to, and not just in football, but in all sports. There's so much of a kind of behind, there's so much curtain, you have to kind of look behind it or try to get a sneak peek behind it if you want to be able to learn anything. And this has kind of been nice to see that they are at least being open again. It took a long time. It took 2 years for them to finally get to this point, but here we are. And I think it seems like, from what you're telling me, it seems like Choctaw Stadium is kind of that, again, not just the hub for the players, but maybe also the media as well. And for everybody who's trying to interact with the league.
Yeah, one more comment, then we'll go to Max. I was talking with one of the executives. I was wrapping up to come back up here and set up, and I said, maybe I'll see you in November. If you guys do the draft or whatever you guys end up doing. He's like, wow, are you going to come back down? I'm like, well, probably. I mean, if I can, this is something that I enjoy too. He's like, well, what can we do here to help you, or what do you? I'm like, just help provide people when people want it. Me or Mark or the St. Louis guys or ever. It's not hard. We're not asking for a lot, and I don't think in terms of the needs and demands that the NFL, God, the millions of people want to do. I just don't think that it's that hard to have okay, we have a handful of fan-led credentialed podcasts. We can feed them a nugget every once in a while. I just don't think it's that hard of a thing that we're asking. Max, you don't need to talk about this, or you could comment on anything you want.
I mean, yeah, I will say that I never thought they were lying whenever the league came out. It was we're going to be more open access. We're going to be with the fans. We want the fans to be directing what we do in certain aspects. I also knew it was always going to take a long time, that people were going to be impatient and try to say that they were being disingenuous. So I'm just glad to finally see it's finally come full circle. And now as we get towards the back end of the fall, you're going to see more and more and more, see some announcements in the next month or so, next couple months. But you have to keep in mind that in order to have access, you have to have something to access. So what were they going to do over these past 2 years? Just show you a big empty room because they can't legally show you their negotiations and business, obviously.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, and no, and my yeah, exactly. And I haven't made a lot of XFL requests just because I've known that what are they going to talk about? What is there even to do? We CJ, one of the scouts, he saw us. He's like, "Oh, you're those guys that have been blowing me up in my DMs to come on your shows." I'm like, I haven't, because I know that you guys can't talk about anything. I only hit up someone if I know that they have something to talk about. And obviously now that things are coming out, Anthony Beck said, I'm happy to come on all your guys' shows. I can't wait. Bob Stoops seemed very engaged with that. Rod Woodson. I mean, I think a lot of the coaches, you're obviously here because you're excited about this. You want to grow and develop it and be a part of something. Jared, what do you make of all this?
Okay, so the USFL should be thankful that you and all these other YouTube channels did something for them, because I've seen that before. I just was like, why are they not letting them do anything? So they should be thankful, because it's all about the fans. It should be all about the fans, and if they're denying you, then that's wrong, I think, personally. So it's good that the XFL is doing something for you guys.
We have a question from Mike. Are we expecting Choctaw to host the XFL Championship? I would say absolutely. I think Andy's shaking his head. What do you think?
I thought they might try to do it in Houston, or do it in a different venue. I don't know, maybe somewhere they were planning Houston last time, but I know that's different circumstances. You don't think they would try to do AT&T Stadium, do you?
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Oh my God, 90,000 plus.
Yeah, well, no, they wouldn't get that many people.
Well, I know, but see.
Yeah.
I think everything is going to be here, but Andy, continue.
Well, I always just wonder, because I remember Jerry Jones offered the AAF to do their championship game before everything kind of blew up. I just kind of keep that in the back of my head as a cliff note, but I know they might have a different relationship with him than that league did. So I don't know. I mean, if they want to put it in Choctaw, that's fine. I'm nothing against that, but I just think about more traditional venues for football. And I know that's not necessarily the most traditional venue, so that's the only thing I wonder about.
Max, what's the quick capacity check here? I know you can look this up.
Yeah, so if they had all the seats open, well, I already know it off the top of my head. I don't need to look it up. Choctaw in a football configuration as is, I believe, is about 43,000. But that's assuming there's no tarps, and that's assuming all the upper level seats are open, which they probably won't be. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't see any way they don't have the title game in Choctaw because of the partnership with Rev Entertainment, because of the fact that AT&T Stadium, they might struggle to even fill the lower bowl at AT&T, just because even that's huge. And also, quite frankly, Choctaw is a major league stadium that's been converted into football, that still has all the bells and whistles that they would need to host a championship game. So I don't think there's really any concern there.
We have a question. They have not announced the divisions yet. I've been asked to show a stadium tour. I'm going to turn off my mic because it's going to jostle here when I move my laptop. But maybe one of you guys can comment while I show the stadium here. Okay, Andy, why don't you give us your best football, baseball play-by-play announcer voice?
Which one? The actual radio feed? But yeah, no, I got to say, one thing I wanted to make a note of out of all of this, and something I didn't really get to earlier, we were talking about as far as the Rock and Dany Garcia being more involved with the league. I have to say, I'm immensely impressed that The Rock's doing this, because he has been everywhere in the last week. He was at the ESPYs on Thursday. He was down here promoting Black Adam, that superhero film, at Comic-Con. Then he flies out to Dallas, does that. Now he's at the media availability. That guy, he was inescapable. Even for me, he was inescapable this weekend. So he is really putting in time and effort into this, though. And he's kind of putting where his money with his mouth was, because when you have that many projects and you're involved in that many things, I wonder about how much time do you really have to stay committed to this thing. But as he mentioned, I think about a month ago, he mentioned that he kind of has a schedule cleared out. Doesn't have any upcoming film projects, no sort of being away at different film sets. He's sort of cleared out for the time being. So I'm I think that's a good sign for him to actually be, going to the showcases, going to the media availability, really actually putting his foot in there. And my biggest thing about him, because I think, Reid, you mentioned earlier, like what do you expect his role to be? I think he just has to be a cheerleader, just be a giant cheerleader, like literally be a giant cheerleader, because he can just promote the league and promote the image and promote what it stands for to the general audience.
Did that tour look okay? I know my shoulder is kind of blocking it. But you got the vibe. We got the XFL logo out there. They've got the XFL stuff on all the TVs here. How did that look? Was that okay?
It looks good. Looks really nice.
I will say there's a lot of comments about The Rock. He, I think, has a ton going on, obviously, but you can tell when he's talking. There's like every once in a while, because I think he really likes to be pre-programmed a little bit, right? Like, this is what I'm going to say. This is kind of have my message formulated. And I think every once in a while, like even today, they were asking him, and I'll post the interview, but they were asking him about something. And it was like, and I almost thought he was going to be like, oh, I lost my place. Or like, oh, can you ask me the question again? Because it was like a really long pause. Like, okay, what the hell am I supposed to say? And they kind of finally found the word he wanted to use. And it's fine. I mean, the guy's got a billion different projects going on, but I just did think that was interesting. That I think that, flying to San Diego and here and doing that and going back, I think it catches up to even The Rock is human sometimes.
Yes.
Leon says maybe we'll get some extra. I don't know. The Vince McMahon thing, I don't really want to get into that on this, but I expect very different changes with WWE here moving forward. Does anyone have any PG comments on the Vince McMahon stepping down in XFL with WWE?
Real quick, I just think it's fascinating to see a parallel universe where, imagine if the last 2 years didn't happen and Vince still owned the league.
That's what I was saying.
We'd be having a very different conversation right now about the future of this league. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously I love Vince. I love a lot of the stuff with that. I'm buying, and I don't want to be the like Reid's the mark and he went to Arizona, whatever, but like, the logo, it's growing on me a little bit, the black and white, and everyone's in the stuff and they're all kind of staff, and you can tell, and it feels, I get it. I don't love the branding with it, whatever, but I wasn't in love with the XFL logo before, like a diehard either. I don't know. I get what they're trying to do. It feels like a very different regime. And especially, like I've said, the last 72 hours has done wonders for me with how I think that they're going to approach everything moving forward. I just really couldn't express that enough. Let's see here. We have a comment. I imagine The Rock 54. The real reason, see, they keep talking about The Rock getting mentioned. I just don't see that happening. I don't see The Rock wanting to do anything. Also, he's supposed to wrestle Roman at WrestleMania, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, so many projects. So many investments he has to keep up with, and all the flying and everything. I don't know how he does it or whatever.
No. I know WrestleMania season is XFL season, like WrestleMania build and all that. Max, you were the one that had the you sent to me, and I know like Jay posted it, and I saw I think XFL Reddit posted, the colors with the coaches, with the branding coming back. We talked Hines Ward Steelers, like, even if do you think they bring back colors, different names? What do you speculate they're going to do there? I know I had the Anthony Beck, like, this is a fresh start for the Battlehawks, and you poo-pooed that, but do we bring back the Battlehawk colors and call it something else?
So Jay, who was actually there last night, was saying that the fans would have some sort of say, perhaps. No, I have no idea. No, I have no idea. But it is possible the fans may be allowed to have some sort of input. It is possible. And I do think that the most popular team names, like the Battlehawks, with those team color displays we had, or the Defenders or the Dragons, Roughnecks, will probably come back unless there's some sort of legal dispute that prevents them from coming back. Logo changes, at least for Houston, has to happen just legally. As for the rest, we'll see. I'm optimistic that the ones that people want will stay.
It's hard. I saw Jay post that, and I saw like it was one of the comments that Dany had in the Q&A that was talking about like, we want to have the fan input. I don't, if we're voting on team names, we got to get moving here. I think that Andy, do you like the idea of voting? I think we need to have done that already, and I think Fan Control Football already has done that a much better way.
I mean, I think they already have their team names like in place. I really do. I don't know if like the fan input is going to change that as much. I believe that they've already done the market research into that. So I don't think as far as like fan engagement, maybe like I'm seeing like, for example, Leon here is asking about like a player 54 award, like something like that, like award ideas or like acknowledgments. That I think that's something more I would see their input on. But as far as like team names go, I think that ship has sailed. I think that's already been decided. And I think, yeah, it would behoove them to sort of keep with a lot of the names, like Max said, just the original ones, just as far as like branding goes, and then have the three new names. Just change, maybe make some slight alterations to the Eagles. The logos, especially the one for Houston, as we mentioned, because they have a legal obligation to do so. But I think the names are already set, in my opinion.
I don't want to get Max's thoughts and yours. I like fantasy football enough, and I've come around on those guys, and Greg was on the show, and they're great. Like, I am a fan. Like, I want you. I don't want to vote on stuff. I want you, like, you're the league. I want you to show me, like, here's the teams. I mean, I don't love the Washington Commanders. I'm going to accept that. I prefer the Washington football team, but I don't like voting on this stuff. I would rather they just pick it and tell me, and we can move on. Let's go Jared first, and then Max. Do you want to vote on like what the Arlington team is called?
I don't need to be voting on something that big. It's not that big of an importance to me and that sort of thing. What I feel like it's going to happen is that fan advisory board that was in 2020 might be coming back or something like that, because they were talking about getting our input on stuff. And I think that's a good idea, is go to that website and then you fill out some surveys and do it that way. But team names, no. Washington's name thing has been a kind of a headache or whatever. I thought the Commanders was a good name. You know, the Washington football team was all right. They could have just kept it like that, and I'd have been fine with it. But that's it for me.
Yeah, Leon says here, I think CFL did a fan for the Red Blacks a few years ago. Yeah, we all know how the Red Blacks turned out. That's the worst CFL name. Don't at me, Jenna. I love you, but I don't like the Red Blacks. Max, do you want to vote on XFL? Please tell me in the chat. Maybe I'm the idiot, but do you want to vote on what the team names are?
I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I don't feel the need to, but I'd be happy with it if they did. I mean, they could easily do the thing where the XFL in 2020 had like pre-trademarked several different names before they actually chose their final one. But I have no idea if they will or not. I will say historically in major sports leagues, there have been like a huge amount of American sports teams got their names through popular vote contests, through fan suggestions. So it's not like it's anything abnormal. And we'll just have to see how it goes.
I don't know. They haven't done one fan vote thing of anything at all. It's been cloak and daggers this whole time, and they'd be like, "Hey, let's put the 100-year legacy of our franchise in the hands of, Bodie McBoatface or whatever." It seems very weird. Andy, can you take a comment, or is your phone ringing there? What do you think about voting? Did I already get your thoughts on the fan voting?
Yeah, no, I think I get the idea of being included as far as like fan voting and getting people involved with the whole aspect of how the league is run. But again, I think we have a league for that. It's called FCF. Like that's like the most extreme example of like involvement, and that's fine. Have that outlet for people. I think that's fantastic. But I also believe that there has to be some sort of like corporate responsibility that has to be going on with the league, and as far as like them knowing what trademarks work and which ones may not. Like I agree. I think that it's left up to the team owners, the team management, the league owners. Like that's their thing. If you want to vote on things like All-Stars, award compilations, all of that, that's fine. Go for that. I think as far as how the league is run, I leave that up to the big guns.
Yeah, the more I think about this, I hate the fan voting. But I don't want to do that. Leon says, Matt Lyons hopping in the chat. Leon says, no Bored Apes, Las Vegas Bored Apes.
Oh, God.
And Matt might be working. If Matt could call in, I'd like to get Matt's thoughts just on all of this stuff. Matt was with us down in Arizona. Matt, I don't know if he caught off the top that our mutual friend Russ Giulio handed me a couple authentic XFL showcase jerseys, excuse me, that we're going to have to figure out what to do with those. I'm going to take one depending on the size. Russ wanted me to podcast in it. I wasn't going to do it today just because I'm dripping with sweat anyway from running around. But look for the episode on Friday, potentially me podcasting with the XFL Showcase jersey. Zachary, I really wanted to see the 2020 team names come back, team colors behind the coaching. Announcements on Twitter made me think they've already got team names, logos, colors worked out. We got Max's comments on that, Jared. I mean,
yeah,
obviously you've already lost the Guardians, Wildcats. Would you be okay them assigning the Guardian, like the San Antonio Guardians, or would you like to remain New York with the Guardians and find something else?
Didn't San Antonio Commanders, that was the AAF, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you can't do that anymore. If they want to do Guardians, I don't think it's the greatest name in the world. Sorry, you got the Cleveland Guardians. You got to deal with that legal stuff. They can change their name, but yeah. Anyways, I think they something else besides Guardians for San Antonio, I think.
Max, I think Max said the Scorpions too. Leon says the Scorpions. Yeah, the 3 cities will have their own name. That's going to be the thing, man. Because if we bring it, if you keep the Battlehawks and then it's like the San Antonio Snakes or something, like something really stupid, it's gonna be hard, But then we'll be mad at. That's the thing with the fan vote. At least with the fan vote, you can be mad at the other fans and not the league. You can hate on that.
We voted on Blob. We voted on Blob, right?
But Blob is universally loved, right? I think that was probably one of the best things the USFL did all season was having Blob as their mascot, right?
We voted the name. We voted for the name.
Yeah,
in a poll. Yeah.
Anyone else have any other questions here? Maybe we'll go hour 30 and then cut it off if anyone else has anything. How are you guys feeling time wise here? Are we running the course? Have we run the ship? Andy, what do you think?
I mean, look, there's going to be so much rampant speculation and rumors. That's it. As soon as this stream ends, I'm sure there's going to be 10 more questions that come out of my feed in the next hour. So I think this is just going to keep going. But I do want to say I just think that it's nice to just have something to actually talk about for once, and something that can actually sustainably go forward with. I mean, you obviously are doing some tremendous groundwork out there, and you're also giving me ideas, or at least you're starting to give me a sense of how the operation is going to be run, which again was just such a cloud of mystery for such a long time. And now you can have boots on the ground and you can tell me what's going on there. So that's something that, again, is just going to continue generating conversation going forward.
Yeah, I was really scared. I just was really worried this was going to be another USFL. And like I said, I don't want to be, I'm positive about a lot of the things that league has done. I've been very vocal about the criticisms. I really was just afraid it was going to be me banging my head against the wall. Maybe not. Maybe tomorrow I'll email them and it's going to be the same thing. I will keep you guys. I mean, I'm sure I will keep you guys up to date. But right now it is going on. I feel good about that. Janet, Spring League, XFL, USFL. Max, why don't you comment? We'll get a couple more in here. Like I said, get off at the hour 30. What do you think of Vince's, the mini camp length? You think there'll be pre-draft workouts for a last look? I mean, obviously we've done the showcases now, but it's still quite a ways. I mean, they're going to get a lot of the undrafted guys, right? I mean, what do you make of the timeline, them getting everyone into the league?
I think they could easily do mini camps in December, just like last time, and then do training camps in January. They'll probably just do all of it in Arlington, but they might have more press events during the mini camp periods with the players, like in the local markets. I did want to mention, because it was on my mind, because did we talk about how the hub is for 3 years?
We did a little bit off the top, but feel free to give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, because I'm not entirely surprised, but it wasn't something I was thinking. It was like, oh yeah, this has to be a long-term arrangement, because no city is going to do this much for you and pay money and set all this up just to do it for 1 year, right? And I guess if you're the XFL, you're like, we need the long-term play on this to make sure we have everything sustainable before we go even further all in than we already are, even though this is still pretty all in if we're being honest with ourselves. So I guess that's fine. But it's definitely gonna piss off St. Louis fans, and I already know Randy was like, the teams are practicing in Dallas, so we're not gonna get as many fans because they're not doing all the local events. And it's like, yeah, we'll see about that.
Like I said, and I want to get Jared's thoughts real quick before we go. Like I said at the top of the show, I think before Max and everyone else hopped on, Russ Brandon, I asked him, and I'll post the interview. I said, well, what do you make of this and them not being in the local markets? He goes, like how much are NFL players in the local markets during the season? Like you're practicing all the time. Like we're not at the grocery store and Randy Krakauer, shopping for rice-a-roni here, trying to like talk with the fans and incentivize them to come to your game. I mean, Jared, what do you think of the 3-year hub? Like knowing whatever this looks like, flying the fans, all this stuff, we're going to be doing this for at least 3 years. Flying the teams, not the fans. That'd be cool if they flew the fans into play. Come to Choctaw.
Yeah, 3-year hub for training, I think is fantastic. I don't want to do the hub setting like the USFL did, and I like that it's a training facility and they can practice and develop their skills and that sort of thing. That's fine with me. I think they really like that Choctaw Stadium. I think it was basically the high school football stadium after the Renegades left, and they probably have had other events too, but like after the XFL left, I don't think they've used that venue as much as they should have or whatever. But yeah, it's good for the facility. I think it's a beautiful facility myself, the way they converted it to football from baseball. So yeah, I like it. I think it's great that they are training in a hub together and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, one real quick note. Jose here says San Antonio's hosting the Final Four for the Album Dome. I wonder how they will schedule it. I always say that is a future Reid problem. Not worried about the 2024 Final Four schedule I remember when we were booking our Airbnb to go to Houston for that championship game for the XFL, man, I looked at every freaking Airbnb. I'm like, I'm going to find the best Airbnb, go Houston, watch the XFL championship game. And then, next thing you know, the league is folded and we're all stuck at home for 2 years. One thing that, Max had made a lot of, comments to me in private about practicing here, right? The best thing about Dallas, not only Choctaw and the hub and everything, is they have all these high school facilities that they can play at, practice at. They announced today, and I'm sure it's in the press release. I didn't have time to write it down during the thing, but each coach is going to share a field with one other team. So they'll kind of be able to scrimmage together. So they're going to use 4 of the fields, 2 coaches each. And then Russ said that they are going to have obviously backups in place for weather-related issues. Is that because I know there was a question both for Choctaw and for the practices and stuff. So they're working through that, but they at least have 4 stadiums under contract. And I'm sure that's in the press release that came out.
Smart idea.
Any thoughts on that, Max? Does that work for you?
Yeah, I heard from one of the other guys who was there that the indoor practice facility plans are supposedly going to be at the Arlington high schools, which is fine by me. Those facilities are great. Can I briefly just bemoan? I really am disappointed they chose Citrus Bowl over Exploring Orlando. That's all.
Okay. There you go. Anything else, Andy, from you? We'll go around the horn. Keep leaving your comments. Anything else you want to get off your chest, Andy, before we sign off today?
Yeah, actually, real quick on the Orlando venue. Yeah, so not going to, I believe, what was the name of it? Spectrum Stadium, the one that UCF used, and that's what the Apollos use. So this is obviously a different venue from that, and it's a little bit bigger as far as expansion wise, as far as like putting more people into the seats. Obviously, it's something that's used for college football games and other events. So it's something that I think, again, I don't know about the accessibility part of it. That part I'm not sure about, but I would like to see what that means as far as getting people out into that stadium. But I think it's a fine enough venue. It's been renovated multiple times and has been put a lot of work into actually making it an accommodable venue. So I think that's fine. I have no problem with that. It'll be interesting to see how. And also, like, I wonder if Tampa Bay fans, for example, because I saw a couple of them on the stream last night, and I don't know if they were too terribly upset about losing their team yesterday or not, but Tampa is it looked like about a 2-hour drive or an hour and 45 minutes away from Orlando. Like, do you get those fans transplanting into Orlando? Do you draw those people into there?
Yes.
I wonder about that. Yeah? You think so, Jared?
Yes. Yeah, I'm in Fort Myers, Florida right now. So yeah, it's only like 100 miles away. I'm going to be 160 miles away from Orlando. Camping World Stadium, I've researched it. The Monster Jam World Finals have been there just a few days ago. Was a huge soccer match between Arsenal versus Chelsea FC in the English Premier League for their preseason tour. So that was a huge thing. So yeah, it's a good venue from what I've heard. A lot of big events are always there. So I think Tampa fans are going to go over to Orlando. It ain't much of a drive.
Brian had put here the stadiums that they're playing at: Northwest ISD Stadium, South Lake Carroll Dragon Stadium, and Vernon Newsom. There was a question. Team 9 was not talked about. Again, though, that's something that I see them easily implementing that the USFL should have. Hey, we're already in the hub anyway. Let's have this team practice ready to go. Yeah, a quick plug tonight, Max, is that Neil Stratton Zoom with Doug Whaley, and who else is on that's talking about the player contracts?
I'm pretty sure it's just, from my understanding, it was just Doug and Neil, and then whoever else joins as a guest to like view it and ask questions.
Yeah, so that'll be at 5 Pacific. So I'll probably be at a bar somewhere editing. So maybe I'll pop up on that stuff. I mean, I could go on all day. Do you guys? We'll get out of here. I get addicted to this stuff. I just keep like, quick plug. There will be a show on Friday. I have a great CFL guest because I know we've had a lot of XFL stuff lately. And then I do think we're going to track down Mike Mitchell and get his thoughts on all this stuff. I don't know when that's going to be, but I've told Mike, and Mike's head was swimming. And obviously yesterday was all sorts of craziness. But yeah, I do think Mike will be on the show Friday. We'll be getting his thoughts on that. Jared, any final thoughts? We'll do Max, and then we'll let Andy take us home because I could literally keep going all day.
Yeah, my big question is, what are they doing for Las Vegas? I question it because I lived there for a few months or whatever, and I think they're just overflowing with so many sports teams nowadays. Formula One's coming in 2023 there. They have a WNBA team now. I didn't even know that. Besides the NHL, they got like an IFL team and that sort of thing. I'm questioning the Las Vegas market, and it could be at the Sam Boyd Stadium, and I've seen it. It looks like, or to the east, it looks like quite a bit of ways. So hopefully people have rental cars, or I don't know about taking the buses. You might have to be connecting to multiple buses to get to that destination, but I don't know. I don't know about the Raiders Stadium. I mean, that's close by if they do it, but that's going to be like a MetLife Part 2, if they do that. So.
Leon asked here about quarterbacks. We asked Bob Stoops. I think Brandon asked Bob Stoops about that during the Arizona showcase. The league is kind of handling all of that right now. It even seemed like with Bob Stoops, we were asking him like, how is this compared to 2020? He's like, it's way too early. We've had 5 showcases, a couple meetings, to even compare. I think that the league is going to handle a lot of that. I do know that they're working on scouting all of the players for all of the coaches together, because not all of the coaches have been able to be at all the showcases. Jim Haslett obviously wasn't at the Arizona one. Neither was Hines Ward. So I think we're doing that stuff. Max, any other thoughts from you? James, now do I post the whole press conference? Does anyone care? Do I just post the Rock and Dany and Russ Brandon interviews? Someone tell me.
I like it all.
I'll watch it.
I'll watch it. Seriously.
How about I lead with Rock and Dany, and then we do Russ Brandon, and then we'll do the press conference. So you guys can see all that. I will go to the bar right now, and I will edit it. It's only noon, but I've been up for I am ready to drink. I have been up since 6 o'clock yesterday morning. Max, any other thoughts from you before, and then we'll go to Andy, and then we'll get out.
You already heard my thing on Allegiance, so I'm not going to say any more on that, but you can replay early in the video to hear about that. Okay. Other than that, Team 9 might not be a thing just because of how big the rosters are. They said 70. So 70 player roster size, you might not need Team 9 with that many players. Plus, you can just call guys from Alumni Academy as your de facto Team 9, quote unquote. And then I will say that I definitely prefer Citrus Bowl to UCF because that's the Spectrum Stadium. It's on the opposite side of Orlando. It's not in downtown, but I wanted the MLS Stadium that's 3 minutes away from Camping World. But Camping World's still a great facility, and I'll take it. And I'm quite optimistic about everything, even despite that one little disappointment.
Andy, final thoughts, and then we'll get me off here before I do this around again.
Yeah. Again, just be able to put in their own work and getting their own players stamped on here, considering the previous contracts made with the USFL and all of the other leagues that are getting involved is it's a lot of legwork. And there's still one other thing coming up in October. There's a specialist. There's a special teams workout coming actually here in my area that I might be attending with former Chargers kicker Nick Novak. So that's something to have to keep on my radar as well. That's another little showcase thing happening later on in the year. So I'll keep my eyes out and ears out for that. But yeah, everything's, all systems are go. This is where we're going. Last thing I'll say, again, I know I'm a broken record, but I want to take Mike Mitchell's tweets and frame them because he was right about this 3 months ago. He was on this, and he deserves credit for everything that he did in that. And all of us have done. Reid, you've done a tremendous job. You and all the writers going to the Arizona Showcase, traveling. You're traveling just as much as The Rock is. Okay, like honestly, your schedule has also been insane. I commend you for everything you've done. Seriously, you're a warrior. It's awesome. And thank you for everything you've done so far.
Thank you. Yeah, Leon says I didn't get a chance to ask about the box because, like I said, I was the first one because I know how this works. I've worked in news for a long time. They go, hey, there's going to be. They go, okay, we're done with the press conference. We're doing media over in the corner. There's going to be a red rope, and I unplugged my thing from the box. I grabbed my camera and I was over there because it's like first come first serve, and then they all kind of stagger behind, and it was kind of all on the line. So I was front row. I mean, I could have touched The Rock's nice shirt that he didn't want the microphone on. So I didn't get a chance to ask about the box, but I did ask that. Mike Mitchell is a treasure, will be on the show. I think that's it. I thought I had one more. I think I had one more comment, but I think that's it. The travel. Yeah, Andy, depending on, let's figure out that date for the specialist showcase. Maybe we can, schedule a Yard House visit, and maybe we could go chat with Nick Novak about that. That could be fun.
I know where the Yard House is in my city, so we're already halfway there.
All right. Well, guys, like and subscribe. A lot of work. This has been a long day. Been up since yesterday morning to come out here. Like and subscribe. Check back in on Friday. I'll figure out with Mike, but I told Mike, I'm like, we have to get you on this week. I don't care what time of the day it is. And really appreciate all your guys' support. And, check out Andy's work on XFL News Hub, CFL News Hub, USFL News Hub, and Max and Jared. I'm sure will keep sending me messages as they do. I appreciate all your guys' support, that you care as much as you do. Everyone wave. I will play this and then we'll get out of here. Thank you guys all so much.
Thank you.